Good morning, everyone. GM, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Folks, it is not just any Tuesday, it is turnaround Tuesday. Stocks opening big green. Crypto has rebounded across the board. Several alts, some memes up double digits on the day after Trump has seemingly come to the negotiation table on these tariffs. The question now, is this a scam pump fake out, or is the worst actually behind us? We're going to break it all down on today's show. Still no Farouk, but we've got Mando here in the house. Mando, GM, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute. Oh, man, it's still muted.
Hello.
Here we are.
Sorry, I'm just so busy, man. I am just so insanely busy today. I'm good, man. Market is looking okay today. Not looking so bad.
Not so bad. We'll take it after what after how bad the last 4 days have been. I'm curious, how are maybe you're just immune to it because you're locked inside right now, but I was curious how the vibes are in Portugal as all this is happening around the globe right now. Like, are people talking about it at the cafes? And
no one cares, as always with Portugal. No one cares at all. Yeah, very, very chilled place to be. Not mentioned once. Someone lightly mentioned that it could increase prices, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think sometimes we those of us who are locked onto the screens for 16 hours a day sometimes can overreact or build things up to be bigger, or perhaps not realize that everyone around the world is not worried about these things for 16 hours a day. And they're just going about living their lives. And perhaps that's the easier route. Well, folks, we have a lot to talk about on today's show. Markets are rebounding across the board. Stocks are up. Crypto's up. The 10-year is up as well. Dollar is not getting weaker. The White House, they made a pretty big statement yesterday. They said they don't want to be the global reserve. So does that open the door for Bitcoin? We'll talk about that. Larry Fink says it's more of a time to buy than it is to sell. Meanwhile, Ray Dalio is warning this is much bigger than tariffs and signs of a changing global order. In news, we got some blockbuster news out of Ripple, one of the largest crypto acquisitions of all time, just broke this morning. And then meme coins also showing some signs of life, of course, led by FARTCOIN, which continues to be one of the strongest tokens on the market. So those are some of the headlines. We'll get into those and a lot more. Before we dive in, shout out to our partners, starting with Galaxis. Galaxis is a Web3 platform empowering creators and brands to build unstoppable communities with full ownership and independence, trusted by icons like Donald Trump, Steve Aoki, Mike Tyson, and the NBA, shaping together the future of engagement. And Wallet Connect is the connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect, that blue logo. It's everywhere, an icon of trust in crypto, as recognizable as Visa at the checkout. If you want to learn more, follow at Wallet Connect on X and Telegram to stay ahead of what's next. All right, we love our partners as always. Mando, if you're ready, let's get right into it.
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land? Can you dig it?
Sorry. I'm just not with you today. Yeah, crypto market, we kind of reclaimed the 80K level pretty well here, or at least we've gone back up there. We've seen Solana go back above 110. Decent amount of trench activity, I think, is coming back here. ETH is also catching up. ETH still underperforming. FARTCOIN still the best coin in the top 300 at 600 million. I don't know. Like, I still don't feel we're out of the woods at all. Like, all the macro stuff doesn't seem to be resolved in any way to me. Yeah, I'm less bullish.
So you're in the camp that it could just be a bit of a relief rally, not out of the woods yet by any means.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're kind of half out. like 1 foot in, 1 foot out here. Like stocks weren't lower yesterday. They were like unchanged. And they've opened a little bit higher today, as of global stocks. So like there's a bit of a relief rally. I don't think anyone really trusts it because it still feels like headline tennis. So I just don't really know. Like I'm not buying up here. I was buying yesterday, but I've kind of just settled my buying for the last 10 minutes or so, or last few hours or so.
I think that makes sense. I feel like today feels like one of those kind of waiting days. So like April 9th is the day that the tariffs are supposed to go into place. That's tomorrow. There's this ongoing escalating feud between the U.S. and China right now. I think Trump promised an additional 50% yesterday. China responded that they're not going to back down. So I think that everyone's saying that is one of the key battles to watch there. But at the same time, it does seem like rhetoric has changed a bit. That Trump and the White House are starting to come to the negotiation table a bit. It seems like they're going to negotiate with Japan. Some news this morning, South Korea, they are looking to potentially negotiate with. So it does feel like to me that we are starting to see a little bit of shift in sentiment from this weekend where it was no negotiation, tariffs are coming, prepare yourself, to now it's the tariffs are coming, but maybe we will walk them back a little bit. That's my read. Some are pointing to Bessent visiting Trump over on Sunday night down at Mar-a-Lago as perhaps the driver in that shift. I'm not sure if I totally buy that one myself, but there has been a pretty clear shift. Maybe that's what's driving some of the rebound here. It looked, I saw something around the lines of China might respond with kind of devaluing the yuan to a degree. Which historically has been a big catalyst for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin specific there could be a winner. A few things that have jumped out to me, like one, so the 10-year was going straight down. Now it's rebounding pretty fiercely. It's back to 4.25% here. So I don't know that was expected. And there was been a lot of talks. Is Trump's plan actually to try to get the 10-year down to 3.5 to continue chopping away at that? So does this actually go against their plans? And then, what also muddies this all up is we got this statement from the White House yesterday. And I'm not sure if folks had a chance to digest this much at all, but they effectively said that they no longer want the dollar to be the global reserve. It's a fairly long essay. They talked about effectively how the U.S. provides global goods, security, and finance for the world, and that these roles are costly with military spending, tax burdens, trade deficits, and they're tired of the rest of the world effectively free riding on the U.S.'s coattails, and that it's time to effectively fix that. And they said the tariffs are effectively one of the ways to go about implementing this regime change. And I think this did come as a surprise. I don't think many have expected to see this. I didn't expect to see this on the page. I mean, it's in the second or third paragraph of the essay. Here, on the financial side, the reserve function of the dollar has caused persistent currency distortions and contributed to unsustainable trade deficits. So they're coming out here and calling it an active problem, which I didn't. I felt like this was maybe what was happening behind closed doors, but I tweeted this yesterday. It seems like they were saying the quiet part out loud now. So that caught me a bit by surprise, folks. It looks like we've got OSF on with us now in the studio.
What's up, man? Manda had to urgently leave, and I was just in the chat, and everyone was panicking, saying like we need someone to come in, and I was literally just sitting down, staring into space. So I thought I'd come on.
Perfect. Well, I find myself doing that as well. Well, I'm happy that you were able to join us. I actually have been wanting to talk to you for a while because I think you are one of the louder bulls on the timeline who has been catching knives and trying to buy the blood. So I want to talk to you about that. Before we maybe dive into some of that, I'm curious for how you're feeling, just high level on turnaround Tuesday here. Were you surprised that we rebounded? Do you feel like it's a fake out pump? Kind of how are you feeling?
It's just, I mean, whether it's a fake out pump or not, we'll find out in due course. But I think this price action is just classic. It's just so textbook. Like, you go out on Friday, this news hits the timeline, everyone's panicking and freaking out. Every single piece of media over the weekend is doom and gloom. People suddenly think the world is going to end, even though it's not. And people are already calling for Black Monday. And obviously you have this big crypto puke on Sunday night. And I just think whenever people call for that, it never really happens. And people are short. People are short, trying to push things lower on a global scale. And coming Monday, things aren't as bad as people feared, and you just had this great big short covering. So I think everything that I expected in the last, I guess, 48 hours has happened the way I was foreseeing it to play out. What happens next is the more difficult thing. Like, do we bounce from here? Do we just go sideways? Do we fall lower? I really, 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 really believe that these tariffs are nowhere near as bad as people think they are. And I think a big problem, and I'm saying this as a non-American, as an outsider, a big problem is so many people in America hate Trump, people who didn't vote for Trump, that they're saying, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Trump's like the worst guy in the world and everything's going to nuke and everything's going to be bad. Like, I don't really care about Trump or anything. Like, I have zero political skin in the game here. Like, I'm literally not even American. But as an outsider, it's very clear to me, like, there's this narrative like, oh, Trump's causing all this and stuff is bad. And like, yes, like, he's going a bit mental. I don't disagree with that. But I think the subject of what's going on here, these tariffs, are nowhere near as bad as like things we've seen in the past, like COVID, like the great financial crisis, like I've even seen people compare it to the dot-com bubble. I'm like, seriously, like, we're not on the brink of like a meltdown here. These tariffs aren't even like, we don't even know if they're going to be fully implemented or not. And we know they're in negotiation. So I think like there's definitely a bit of like narrative pushing by people who I think have vested interest that has just reached a global scale, which I think caused the panic. But I think now people are realizing it's not as bad as, like, the world isn't just going to end today or tomorrow. And like always, people will work through this and find some sort of solution. Like every single other bad thing we've happened, just this isn't anywhere as near as bad as anything that's happened in the last 20 years of financial markets, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens now. Like, I agree. Like, Trump's a bit mental. He's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. I personally don't think we're going to see the full impact of these tariffs, because I think whether or not he's a lunatic, there's presumably a lot of pressure on him from large donators or people within his party who are like, look, you can't just go out there and do this, otherwise everything's going to nuke. So their goal, I think, is to come to some sort of agreement. And I think in the end, if he has to back down, he will, but it will be under the guise of, oh, we achieved these better deals with these countries and this was a win for America, even though he like de facto backs down on other stuff. I think that's how it will be presented. And maybe he comes across as weaker, but at the end of the day, that's good for markets. So, as I've commentated on the timeline, like, I've been buying a lot of risk, just been averaging down, catching knives, as you say. I'm down on a lot of prints, but I've kept on averaging lower. And I think this is going to prove to be a really good dip to buy. So far, we've had a bounce. Does it continue from here all the way up? I don't think we just gap back to all-time highs from here. I have a suspicion we've maybe seen the lows. And I think we can range from here for a bit. So I think you have time to deploy risk. But the thing that I really would advise doing is don't just randomly get yourself bearish at the lows because of what you're reading out there, and try and take a step back and think critically about what's going on here, I think.
Yeah, I think that's great advice and evergreen advice. And I feel like a few thoughts in response. One, the Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, is absolutely there. I saw a clip from Schumer in 2017 being angry at Trump for not levying tariffs against Chinese unfair trade deals with the U.S. And now, 8 years later, the tariffs are here and they're complaining because it's impacting the stock market. So there is a lot of anger at the messenger versus the message, I think, is absolutely playing out, and the media is amplifying it. And there's a lot of scare porn, do porn. It was consensus on Sunday that we were going to have a Black Monday event. Like that was consensus. And you're right. Like whenever it's consensus, it's probably not going to happen. Now you've got folks like Ackman. And I think he's been over the top a bit over the last 6 months. Like I think there's been times where he needed to get reined in a little bit. But he's trying to apply some reason and saying, like, hey, like 50% tariffs are going to wreck us. He called it an economic nuclear winter. But if we can come back to 10%, we can move forward. And it seems like perhaps that was Trump's goal, Trump and the team's goal. And I don't know. I think there's a school of thought that Trump was just a bull in a china shop, and that maybe Besant corralled him and maybe he's listening. I don't know. I find it also hard to believe personally, this is my personal take, that he had he had no plan or just total bull in a china shop. And then Scott Besant flies down to Mar-a-Lago on Sunday night and just totally changes his mind. Like I also don't believe that. I feel like there was probably some kind of a plan here. Like the simplest explanation was that it was all like art of the deal negotiation strategy. And now I feel like it's starting to come to light that that's what that is. Now, with all that being said, I do think there's going to be some economic impact to new tariffs, right? I think in folks who are in the manufacturing business and global, like I've already started to see some of that. So I think that's going to take a little bit of time to work through. So I'm with you. It's hard to predict where we go from here, but I mean, I think folks like Larry Fink are saying it's more of a buying opportunity than a selling opportunity, even if we dip 20% lower.
Yeah, I mean, we're off, year to date, maybe before today, like at some point yesterday, we were down 20% on both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 year to date. And yes, there's an argument to say we could fall further, but what do you do? Like, are you selling now to prevent yourself losing another 20%? Like, it just seems a bit, it just seems like if you've missed the chance to sell, the chance to sell really was the beginning of the year in January when everyone was the other way, too bulled up about Bitcoin reserve and all this kind of stuff. So it feels like you've missed the chance to sell, in my opinion. And I'm not saying we can't fall lower. Like we absolutely can. We can fall lower on stocks. We can fall lower on crypto. But how much lower are we going to go? Are we going to go down 10%, 20%, 30%? Or are we going to go down 90%? And what's the upside over the rest of this year, over the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? It's a lot bigger than any potential downside everyone is fearing. So to me, I think this is a really good buying opportunity. Like I haven't owned equities in years, and I have a bunch of cash lying there from stuff that I sold last year. And I was like, maybe I should put this into stocks and, not be so risk averse with the cash. But I didn't want to buy stuff, at like all-time highs last year. And now we've had this 20% pullback. And for me, it's like, okay, this is perfect. I can put cash into stocks where, it's materially less risky than crypto, but I still have good, market upside. And that's a really good buying opportunity for me. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people who are thinking the same thing. So, it's just like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be the person that's like selling too late as things are already quite low, and then inevitably FOMOing back into it when things are better, when the coast is clear and things are all resolved and prices are already higher and you end up buying back higher again? Or do you want to take a chance and buy when stuff is low and things are less clear, but there's a chance that things get resolved? This is the thing. You can't just, if you wait for the good news, you're going to miss the opportunity to buy low. Like by definition, you end up buying high because it gets priced in. So you have to buy it when there is bad news and when it does feel like there's no hope, with the view of at some point it getting turned around. But if you don't buy on bad news when everyone is calling for, doom and gloom, then you're never going to catch these low prices. And I think if you're someone who hasn't made money in crypto in the last 3 to 5 years because, you sell everything when everything pukes, you go away, you hear it's doing well again, you come back, and you're just making yourself like buy high and sell low every time. So you have to just stick it out there and, take a chance. I think you have to take a chance, and knowing that you're going to get prints that are going to be out the money straight away, but, don't blow your load in one go and keep averaging down. That's what I've been doing. It feels gross, like the last 2 or 3 days when I've been buying, it's like, oh, fuck. Down another 25%, great, buy more. Down another 25%, great. Like, so my first buys are down like 75% or 80%, but that's how you average lower. Like that's why you don't go all in on the first go. And for me, that's been a really successful way to make money. So Yeah, I just think this is a really good entry point, and I think you should have some risk on here, and I think you should give yourself some room to add lower. But just sitting here calling for doom and gloom and saying the world's gonna end, and this is the worst thing since COVID or whatever, I just think that's really dumb. I think you're just gonna end up missing it once again.
Yeah, I like that strategy. I mean, look at it, Bitcoin at 79.5 here. Like what? I feel like the downside versus upside, like 72K downside. Like, are we really going to see lower than that? I feel like there's such a strong bid.
Yeah.
Versus the upside, and I think if when Bitcoin was over 100K, you had FOMO that you didn't have enough. Like, you have to be asking yourself, like, okay, like, why aren't you starting to buy here? And I've been in conversations with a few folks who actually did sell their Bitcoin on Monday, and like, what are you going to buy? Like, unless you need that cash for your personal life, okay, of course, put that off. But like, are you trying to scalp it lower? Like, what other assets are you going to try to buy if you're worried at Bitcoin when it's already 30% off highs? So I think you and I are fairly aligned, though I haven't been as aggressively buying as you, mostly because I consolidate into positions, but I never really stabled up too much. So
I think it's a fair, like, the point on stabling is a fair point, and I feel like when I am tweeting buy the dip, we should be buying here, the general sentiment is I'm already all in. Like, with what money can I buy? And it's almost like, once you're in crypto, most people seem to just be all in, and you're like rotating between different things, but people very rarely like hold a large amount of stables. And I think the lesson there is like, if we do have another 2024 year and that style of price action, it's important to take chips off and sell along the way and have some stables. And even if you're like max bullish, you should still have some stables, because you want to have that fund for times like these where you can actually go in and buy. And like, I sold a lot last year, but every time I sold, I was like, fuck, I kind of regret selling. And like, it went higher again. I was like, and then people around me weren't selling anything. And I was like, am I just like the only idiot here that's like selling stuff? And then now it's like, when things crash, it's like, oh great, like I'm able to actually put money back in, down 75, 80, even 90% from where I sold stuff last year, and have another go at like multiplying that wealth. So, just as I'm advocating for buying the dip right now, if things rip again and you have like another crazy thing, I think it's important to not get so greedy where it's like, I have to be all in because now we've hit 100K, we're going to 500K and all that kind of stuff. Like, you should be taking chips off along the way. Even if you're max bullish, like, you should build up a portfolio of stables. And you can earn money on stables. Like on Coinbase, you can earn 12% right now on USDC, which is just a Coinbase promotional thing. So it's not nothing. And then you want to save that for your rainy days. So it's all easier said than done, because you're always fighting with your emotions and with the market narratives, and reading CT every day can, really influence your mood. And no one is safe to that. Like, even I will come on CT and be like, shit, I shouldn't sell, or am I an idiot buying, and all that kind of stuff. But I just had to be really disciplined.
It's something I need to get better at for sure.
Oh, we all do. We're not, I mean,
I'm curious. So I want to dive into some of the AI tokens that I know you've been going after, but I'm curious, were you ever involved in the hyperliquid trade over the last 3 months?
No, like I really mid-curved the whole thing, because I just, when hyperliquid, when people were farming hyperliquid, I was just like, it's just another like perp dex. Like, how is this? Why would this be any better than anything else out there, and trade higher than the other dexes? Obviously, they did a great job onboarding whales. They've done a great job marketing, and they've generated a lot of fees, and they've used that to buy back the token and support it. So it was definitely a miss on my part. But I don't really see, like, at these levels, I'm not really that interested. And I haven't been, even when it was that 25, 30 area, because I just don't really see what the story is from here. Like, sure, they can continue to buy back tokens with good revenue with fee generation, but you have to assume that those revenues are able to be maintained over a longer period of time, right? So I don't really see why everyone talks about this as if it's like the dog's bollocks, or like the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know what I'm missing. Like, it's just a perp dex, and it's great. Their marketing is great. It's a really good product. I get it, and it's a good anti-sex, anti-establishment kind of like narrative, and I completely get all that stuff. And I think the team's great, and I think it's a good product and a good token. But I don't understand why people rave about it like it's the best thing in the world. But that's a credit to them for fostering that sort of like cult-like behavior around it, and maybe that alone is the thing that can drive it. But yeah, it's not for me personally. But that's not to say it can't do well, I think.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. So I've been in the trade, and I've been trying to figure out what to do from here. I'll quickly pull up some of their visuals. So the market share story has been one that I think is pointed to quite a bit. So 65% of perps, but I don't think this is including Binance. So I'll need to take a look at some other data sources in this as well. But clearly the marketing materials have been strong. What I'm wondering is, like, is this a momentum asset? So if things do turn around, is it going to be one of the tall movers, rightfully or wrongfully? Because I think there's a narrative that folks will rally behind. We've seen them rally behind it once already. It was one of the fastest movers in this past cycle, but also on the downside. And I had a decent position, which I clipped out during the day that they were exploited, right around $13. So I actually did stable that up, and I've been thinking personally, like, do I want to re-enter this trade or not? And I haven't acted on it. So I'm still working through that to a degree. I think general, like where my gut is, if I could get it sub 10, I think that would be a very interesting price. Like it'd be around 3 billion market cap or so. I think it could be a bit more attractive. I think also if it starts to show more momentum here coming out of the bottom, I think that would be another sign. So I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. So I appreciate your thoughts on that one. Let's talk about some of the tokens that you have been getting into, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think you shared them publicly, so I'm not exposing anything, but I think you're revisiting some of the AI trades. So like or maybe you never left it. So kind of what's your thesis or thought behind that?
I think the thing I would say about AI, just really top down, just forgetting these tokens, is just such a big part of our everyday lives now. Like I can't end the day without AI coming up in some sort of conversation, even outside of crypto, like my parents or like my friends, or like everyone talks about it, right? It makes sense. I think people have said this for a while. It makes sense for there to be something within crypto that is AI related that everyone will just pile onto. And there's been some tokens in the past. And I think when you had the AI agent stuff come through at the back end of last year, the difference here was that you actually had products that felt tangible. That we saw stuff like AI XBT on the timeline. You saw stuff like the Truth Terminal putting out like meme related stuff. It was kind of something that was quite tangible that people could maybe explain to a normal person. It's like, oh, hey, here's this like thing called AI XBT, and it just like reads in all of crypto Twitter and then spurts out views. Like people could see, touch, and feel that sort of thing compared to before when you're trying to explain some of these other tokens like Fetch and what was the other big one, like Tau, etc. They're really hard to like, explain to like a normie. So I think that's why you had that big AI boom towards the end of last year. And, just like many things, when they have that initial big rally, they end up crashing as everyone sells and everyone made a lot of money. And that's what's happened to the AI agent space. That's not too dissimilar to what happened to meme coins in 2023 after you had that great big Pepe run, and then you had Turbo, and you had a few other tokens that like, had this crazy run, and then they all just like nuked like 90-95%. And then it was like dead in the water for a little bit. And then things ended up coming back. So what my view here is that AI is just way too big a narrative for us to ignore. Like, it's definitely not going away. It's staying here. It's coming back as part of like our everyday lives, not just within crypto, not just within markets. All of this stuff in the meantime, while everything's new, has been developed. Like, people have been working on stuff, rolling out new products. People are starting to use it. And the third thing is, like, there is a lot of institutional investment going into this stuff. And I know we have this like anti-institutional behavior, but I'm sure people would love to find out that the people behind some of their favorite meme coins are actually VCs anyway. But there's been a lot of institutional investment going into this stuff. Granted, it was from high levels, but that still goes into this stuff. So people are buying and accumulating like all these tokens. So I do think I really do believe we will have another AI run at some point this year. And all this stuff is down like 95% from highs. And it's not like they're dead projects. Like, they're still doing stuff. They're still developing these agents, developing the marketplaces, developing the launch pads, etc. So I do think you will have another run in this stuff, and maybe it's like institutional led. I think the other thing that's important is some of the stuff like AI16Z gets compared to L1s. Like, imagine you had an L1 for AI agents. That means the ceiling for something like that is much, much higher than just the meme coin ceilings we're used to, which tend to be like, oh, if it gets $1 billion or maybe $5 billion for the best ones, that's where I'd sell. Whereas if you look at L1s, they all trade at like tens of billions of dollars of FTV. So there's that narrative, which I think could be pretty interesting as well. So I don't know. It's a degen play. Like, it's people look at all these charts and all of these coins look like they're dead. Like, this is a classic dead meme coin chart. But I am pretty, the way that I'm managing my risk right now is I have a lot of Bitcoin, which I feel like is like pretty low risk way within crypto. And this is sort of like my degenerate play where, like, if I get it right, it's going to be 10, 20, 30x. If I get it wrong, it's going to be a 0. But I just think we're going to have another AI agent run. And for me, the one that I've gone the hardest on is AI16Z, because I think that's the token within this space that has the most mind share, has all the GitHub stars and ratings, etc. And I think it has that L1 narrative. And if people suddenly think, oh, I need to get back into AI, what do I buy? Well, the two things that got to the highest market cap were AI16Z and virtuals. And I think those are the two that people go for as, like, I don't want to say the safer plays, but as like the more well-known plays. So AIXBT could be another one as well. Like, that's also down massively. So yeah, it's a bit of a degen play because these charts all look like they're dead. But my hunch, and it's not really much more than a hunch, my hunch is that we see another run this year. And yeah, like, I see people with comments like, these are just rebranded chatbots. And yeah, I don't disagree. They absolutely are. But it's not about what they are. And it's not about necessarily thinking the tech is going to be game changing. It's just about how big that narrative can get once again. And I don't believe that this narrative got so big that it went to a combined market cap of 17 bill all the way down to 4 or 5 bill now, that it won't retest that again at some point. And I think this is the time to be accumulating in preparation for that, rather than waiting for it to start moving and then end up buying stuff higher. So again, it's not a surefire bet, but I think this is my punt at like the 10x plus kind of trade.
Well, I appreciate you walking us through that. It's an interesting one. I'm in the camp. I think 100% we're going to get AI round 2. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I think one of the open questions is it going to be all new players versus the old guard, or will some of the old guard, still be around? I think, I do think your thesis on AI16Z is, like, if there is going to be a rebound for existing players, they are at the top of the list, right? It's them and virtuals. And I've always thought there was a little bit more coming out of the AI16Z world than virtuals. That's no offense to the virtuals team. Just because it felt like they had more folks working together, the GitHub, the Launchpad. I think they've been fairly smart to be kind of managing expectations through this bear. Like, they haven't been kind of coming out with announcements every week. So I don't know how those would have been received anyway. So it's clear they've been building behind the scenes. I think you have to fade them launching another token. I think I've said that before on the show. Yep. So that is something that could happen. I think it's a low probability. But I don't think it's AIXBT that comes back. Like maybe because it's got the mascot narrative, but it feels like we've all kind of moved past that. I will say it's notice what jumps out to me every time I look at the cookie board is we had this explosion in agents and then it just totally leveled off. Like no one's launching new agent tokens. We went from 20 a day to stone zero. And even in the meme coin game, it's like, of course, like we fell, like new launches are down probably 60% or 70%, but there's still new memes coming out every day. Like the new agents have totally stopped. So it does make me wonder, like, are we going to have is it going to be a different meta? And I think it will be different to a degree. I'm curious, have you been tracking parallel and prompt? Because I think that could actually be a potential catalyst for an AI wave 2. Is if prompt comes out and it's strong out of the gate. I'm curious if you've been following along.
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be, I think that's definitely very interesting. It does feel like you have stuff like that. And I guess Wayfinder as well, like it presents potential competition to the tokens that did well last time. So I agree with your commentary that the risk here is that, yes, we have another AI run, but is it the same tokens or is it a set of new tokens? And that's, I think, the risk you have to take. And I guess the risk that I have in being so concentrated in like a couple of coins. I haven't followed parallel and prompt that closely.
Okay.
But I think it's definitely something to keep track of. It's just a question of how, I guess it's just a question of how you want to play it. If you're bullish, do you spray across a bunch of different things? Or do you focus on a couple? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. Yeah. My fear is the worst thing is you get it right, but you own the wrong coins.
Always.
And that's your risk when you get so concentrated. So,
well, I appreciate the bet. I mean, it's not too many folks out there are kind of being public about their bigger bets. So, more power to you on that one. I think the good news is, I mean, we may find out somewhat soon. Like prompt is going to TGE in the next week and a half. So perhaps that is what, if we get a nice little parlay here of some tariff relief plus a good TGE out of prompt and Wayfinder into kicking off a new potential meta into the second half of April and May. Before the summer months. That's could be a nice little parlay. So I'll have my hopes up
interesting
with that. I think Farouk would be mad at me if I didn't ask you about FARTCOIN's strength and performance here.
I think I'm a FARTCOIN convert now. Like I do think it's tough to ignore the relative strength it's had in the last couple of months or so. I think it got all the way down to 250-ish and then never really moved lower with the market. And I think you can't really ignore that because it just means people are buying this thing. So I think this coin will probably retest all-time highs. I think I don't own any yet. I've sort of been toying with buying my first bit of FARTCOIN. It's just it just feels like a scary proposition at the market cap it is.
Sure.
And with all these coins and all the meme coins, the main thing really is like how much supply is controlled, who owns it, what the cabal plans are, what the whales are doing. And without like being privy to that information, it's hard to judge how much size to go into. But the price action and charts do tell a story. And the story here is that people have been accumulating and are giving it a go. So, I think it's just, you just can't really ignore the price action. You can't really ignore what's been going on. So I'm constructive on this. I think if we have a drop on it, I think I would consider buying it. I think this could be a pretty easy, like if the market properly rebounds, it's clear this has like one of the best betas in the market right now. So if we go back to 100K Bitcoin, I think this thing is through all-time highs really. And, it could be one of the stronger performing coins, I think, this year. So I don't own any, but I'm definitely definitely got my eye on it. I would say you can't really ignore it right now.
Too big to ignore.
Too big to ignore. Yeah.
I think what jumps out to me, and like Dip Wheeler keeps pounding the table on this, but the holder growth is wild. Like they're like 1,000 to 2,000 new holders every week throughout like this down period. And now I think it might be even accelerating to a degree. It looks like a little cup and handle breakout. I think it's hard to be too bold up on any massive breakouts right now, just with all the tariff uncertainty. But if we get some positive news, I mean, this thing looks like it's primed to be a big winner. I'm curious, did you see the Ripple news this morning that broke right before the show?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so blockbuster acquisition. They acquired Hidden Road, $1.25 billion. So if folks don't know Hidden Road, they process 3 trillion in transactions every year. As a part of this acquisition, Ripple's stablecoin RLUSD will become core collateral across the Hidden Road services. Hidden Road's post-trade activity will move to the XRP ledger. And now Ripple is going to offer custody, financing, and clearing to Hidden Road clients. It's a pretty big deal. It feels like Ripple already had the army behind it. It felt a little to me like kind of fake it till you make it. But like, did they just make it? Like with this acquisition? I mean, this feels like they have some real institutional power now.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's also just another sign of how big crypto is becoming in the traditional world in terms of like infrastructure and rails that are being created to get onboarded and that kind of stuff. So like in this backdrop, you see headlines like that, and then you think, oh, maybe this is why crypto has outperformed the last 2 or 3 days, because regardless of what's happened with tariffs, you still had like the biggest U-turn by the USA in terms of crypto regulation. And I think we got too bulled up about that in January, but I think now everyone's forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
And just because something doesn't happen overnight, which is what people wanted which is what people wanted, it doesn't mean progress isn't made and things aren't good for the industry going forward. So headlines like this, I think, are a reminder of how constructive the regulatory and infrastructure and traditional getting into crypto outlook is right now in the US, and the likelihood of other countries also following suit there. It's really, really bullish, I think, longer term, and just it's not to be faded. Does this cause crypto to rally like tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Like maybe not. Maybe it just gets, acknowledged, but not instant price action. But all these things will, I think, should give people confidence that, if you buy Bitcoin today, in 5 years' time, it should be worth a lot more than what it is today.
Yeah, it's almost like we priced all this in December, January, and then everyone forgot, like you mentioned, and now it's not really priced in as much anymore. And like these are the types of acquisitions that this pro crypto administration has enabled. And again, like we are in the early stages of that. And that's a big announcement out of Ripple. It does look like we're selling off a little bit here live on the show. Have stocks turned around? Stocks look like they're still up a decent amount. So maybe this is more of a crypto fall here. But
I'm back.
Man is back. He had
to jump in. Talking.
Yeah, he's carried the lion's share of the show. He's been deep on this.
I know, thank God. I
always turn up when Mando's not here.
I can't tell you how busy I suddenly just was then, and lots of different people shouting at me. Yeah, look, it's a strange one because I think the thing that is scaring people here is the 10-year. I don't know if you guys spoke about that or not.
Not too much. Yeah.
Well, like the whole point of this was that, we're going to get the 10-year down to refinance the debt. And what China did yesterday is they sold $50 billion of treasuries, reportedly. And they still own a few $100 billion. So there is not an ace card, but there's a card here where if the aim was to get down the cost of borrowing in the US, China can just single-handedly drive that higher.
Sure.
As can a few other different nations that have big holdings of US debt. So I think that's why the market is still a little bit like, that's just not a good sign. Yesterday, stocks closed basically unchanged, but the 10-year was higher. At least stocks have bounced today. But that 10-year going back to 4.2%, I think it's going to scare a lot of people here. It's going to point to the idea that this could go on for longer. If the we're playing checkers and not chess analogy that everyone keeps using, like, well, I don't know. Like, if you wanted to get down to 2.5%, 3%, we've kind of just reversed all of the last few days on that. So I think that's going to worry people. I don't think macro's out of the woods at all here.
Yes, and we've seen. Well, Bassett came out and said China's got a pair of twos, and they already showed their cards too quickly. It feels like there's just more financial games being played as a part of this escalating trade war situation right now, and I would tend to agree that it doesn't feel like we're out of the woods on this just yet. I think there's a question of, is their goal really to bring the rates down or not? And I think there's some folks in the camp that it's more.
I think it's sort of like this weird standoff where Trump thinks, let me just go crazy on these tariffs and stuff, and then force the Fed to cut rates. Powell's like, nah, no, we're not going to do that. And Trump's like, oh, fuck. And then, and now it's sort of like this like standoff thing where like, who's going to be the bad guy that's going to like not fold to let things get worse? Ultimately, I think between them, there is some sort of implied put where one of them has to give in. And the markets at one point were second guessing Powell's comments. Like, I think we have more rate cuts predicted for this year than previously. Now it seems like it's going the other way. Well,
they may still rate cut, but like China's got $750 billion more.
Yeah, exactly.
Of US treasuries they can sell. $750 billion. So if they want to drive this higher, they can. The bond yields higher, they can. I think the other thing is that I had a look at like local Chinese news on the back of this. Like Xi Jinping is seen as a strong man too. Very much has been authoritarian, run China for a long time. His ego is very high. It's not, though he's less like bombastic as Trump. Like, this is a guy who thinks he's building a dynasty, whether you agree with that or not. I don't think this is just one of these things where it's like, oh, we can strong arm. Like, strong arming another strong man, like they could go at this for a while here. Like, she could just turn around. There was a really good post yesterday, I don't know if you saw, but it was like, this was literally the storyline to I think it was Call of Duty, like Modern Warfare 2 or something like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that they could do here. They could invade Taiwan. They could do a big cyber attack. They could steal tons of IP. Like, I think this doesn't necessarily just lead to, and those sort of comments, like, imagine just they have their version of Trump right now, and then they see that being fired at them. It's not like they go, oh yeah, we'll come to the negotiating table, right? I think it's a slightly different scenario. I think the other countries, I think there's, because obviously US protects, half of Europe. It protects most of Canada as well. Basically huge trading partners, but China and the US, they don't need to become friends, and they can hurt each other for a long time.
So that's the foundation for an outlook of extended chop, perhaps deeper recession.
I don't think the China situation may not be resolved for like 10 years now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, next week they're gonna come to a deal. Like, China could just decide, hey, we've decided this is our moment. Mm-hmm. It could be years before a China deal, genuinely.
It feels like everyone's waiting for some resolution, and I would agree there's not going to be resolution on that specific matter for a while. I think there's a question of, can we reach resolution with 50 to 70 other countries over the next quarter?
Yeah.
and get to a better spot of a new, potentially multipolar global world order. So I think that's what we can watch for. But we'll certainly see. There's no shortage of daily headlines. Walter Bloomberg's account blown up. OSF, we're going to end the show here in a couple minutes, but I want to give you a chance. Anything wrecked? Any wrecked drinks? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, we have, man, I've not too dissimilar to Mando and all the stuff going on with Yeet, but I've just been really swamped on wrecked stuff. But nothing to say right now, but I think we've been working on a lot of stuff at the beginning of this year. We should have our new drinks launch hopefully at some time this month, so keep an eye out for that. I think put some teasers and stuff out about it, but it's not stopping there. Like we have a lot of stuff planned for the rest of this year that will be coming. It's just, it feels like we're one of those points where, because we don't really build in public, every day I'm like, oh wow, this is really good, or this is like really amazing, and we've done this, but no one else really sees it until it comes to fruition. And I don't really like to be one of those guys who just hypes up things all the time. And you know, I fall guilty to it sometimes, but I don't want to be one of those guys that every day is like, oh, this is going to be the next big thing, and then I don't want to like overpromise and under deliver. But the next few weeks and months for Retch will be pretty exciting, I think.
Nice. Well, good to hear. And I enjoyed the teasers we got for the new drink flavor. So I'm excited.
It's good. The new flavor is good. Like I'm not just saying it to say it. I actually a lot better than the first one, even though the first one is our flagship drink. But it's really good. Like I went through the entire thing in like 2 days, and now I don't have any for like marketing stuff. But it is really good.
How does it mix with tequila?
So I don't think this one will mix that well with tequila. It will probably mix quite well with gin and vodka. It's less of a, like the original liquidated lime is really good with tequila. And it's a really good mixer. I think this one is maybe less of a good mixer, but it is just a really good standalone drink, I would say. Nice.
Well, I will be bringing it to my new North Shore Chicago neighborhood and infiltrating.
Nice.
And spread the good word this summer.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Seth, this was a great combo. Mando, thanks for popping back on. Folks, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show here. That's it. Want to thank our listeners as always. Want to thank my co-hosts. Thank our partners. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until then, go make it a great day. Goodbye.